Our next speaker is a powerful minority leader. Please help me welcome the Maine Senate Democratic leader, Senator Troy Jackson from Senate District 1, which is the most northern district in the state along the four Canadian borders.
Powerful minority leader. I leaned over to Congresswoman Pingree and said, "Who's that?" Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thank you, Rachel and Maine NAACP for inviting me. It's a tremendous honor. And before I give a few brief remarks, I've been asked to acknowledge some of the elected officials that are in the room. The City of Gardner Mayor Tom Harnett, Cumberland County Sheriff Kevin Joyce, old friend, University of Southern Maine President Glenn Cummings, Southern Maine Community College President Ron Cantor, representing the office of Senator Angus King, Travis Kennedy, Tribal Rep Henry Bear, Portland Superintendent of Schools Xavier Botana, and I'd like to, because there's so many of you here tonight, which we all really appreciate, and I don't want to miss any, but could all the current Maine legislators and past elected legislators please stand also? It's a unique privilege to speak at an event of remembrance for Dr. Martin Luther King, not least of all because of the orator he was, but because of his unmatched contribution to the world. As I thought about what I'd say tonight, I realized it's challenging to find words that haven't already been said about Dr. King. So I thought it might be meaningful if I tried to view this from a lens of who I am. That is to say, I am a middle-aged, working-class, rural white man with mixed ethnic heritage from the farthest corner of Maine. Committing those words to paper brought home the salience of the superficial differences between my life and that of Dr. King, or any person of color, or any new Mainer. And if I'm honest with myself and with you, the sheer weight of history and lack of interaction between communities like those in my own meant for much of my life I was ignorant to the enormity of race as an unsettled issue. But the increased visibility of hate and racism that weighs on each of us in our minds tonight should expose it to anyone who has somehow avoided acknowledging it. It should expose that this is a question of national importance that reaches back to the settlement of North America by Europeans and then the creation of the United States. It should expose what many white Americans may find discomforting but need to accept, that the achievements of the civil rights movement were not the end of the story. It should expose that battling hate and racism is a greater part of our future than it has been of our past. And it should expose what I can only imagine all people of color have long known, that words on a piece of paper claiming that you are safe and equal do not make you safe and equal so long as the power structures still refuse to ensure your safety and acknowledge your equality. When I pair these stories of truth against my story of my life, how can I not admit my complacency? As a white man, of course, I've seen the dark heart of racism among people who would never reveal their inner thoughts to a person of color or admit the implications of those thoughts to themselves. Of course, I've heard the unspeakable words. Of course, I've heard the destructive rants and the relentless diatribes. And of course, I've seen white men be racist and white women be bigots and white children repeat these things as though they were without weight. And of course, these have been so many people I know and love, people I respect and admire, people I know to be good and full of love despite this ability and willingness to harbor hate. Scarcely anything has been such a conundrum in my life. Little else is so difficult to reconcile definitively. Indeed, it's just as scary to say these words as to know they will be heard. So that's why I want to say to you here today that I have a commitment to you. As leader of the Maine Senate Democrats, my caucus, my friends and family, and my supporters and the powers are committed to beating back not only the tide of hate, but the sea from which it came. I do not want a person of color to experience hate any more than I want someone else to create it. And I do not want a person of color to experience violence any more than I want someone else to perpetrate it. I do not want a person of color to be oppressed any more than I want a person to choose to be the oppressor. In my imperfect understanding, I do not know what the future will bring, but I do know that it will only be made better if we abolish hate and establish equality for all. There's no greater stain on earth that stands in the way of all we could be than inequality. It is present in the story of nearly anything and everything, and when it was reined in somewhere, it reappears somewhere else. Never really withdrawing, and certainly never intending to. Last year, I was very proud and excited to support and work for Senator Barry Sanders during his presidential campaign. And I did that because Senator Sanders spoke of defeating inequality, even when he didn't say that word. During that time, I was often mistaken for being a class reductionist, which would have meant I saw economics and class as the root of all inequality, without making room for race, gender, or anything else. But that isn't so. What I believe is no matter what kind of inequality we're talking about, whether it be racial inequality, income inequality, gender inequality, inequality will always be the story for someone who is powerful choosing to oppress someone who's not. There is no greater imperative, no greater challenge, and no greater opportunity than there is to eliminate inequality by lifting all those that are powerless together without reducing our stories or ignoring the unique origins of our burden. I supported Senator Sanders because I heard this message in his words. But he was not the one who taught it to me. In my interpretation and understanding of him, there was no one who I ever saw the more invasive roots of inequality for what they were than as did Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King is introduced to school children through his I Have a Dream speech. I believe he would recognize that a happy, inclusive, peaceful America will be one where all dreams have equal footing and opportunity. That is the basis of this historic speech at the National Mall all those years ago. How many dreams are now slipping from the eyes of so many Americans, so many of you in this room, because of inequality? How many dreams are vanishing as America wakes to increased racial inequity, gender equality, and that which I have felt most kept by, economic inequality? White Mainers, black Mainers, new Mainers, Mainers who have lived here for centuries, we have a common struggle. We have so much more in common with each other than we do with our opponents. I am not saying anything that you haven't long known if you're in this room tonight, but many people do not yet realize this. In my imperfect understanding, I have to believe that they will one day come to see that inequality for what it is. And I have to believe that they are open to this story. And my pledge here tonight is to be the one to tell it. That's what feels most right in my heart. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I mean, I think it's the frustration that so many people are feeling in Maine, in this country, and you don't understand as much about it until you start feeling it yourself. And then, to have, people of color or immigrants to Maine or LGBT, the things they've been struggling with, for years that, you didn't understand because you're in your own little silo trying to make a living, trying to, pay the bills. And that's why I say, I mean, the fact that, we all have common dreams and things that, we want to do in our lives. And there's a handful or a very small minority of people that are making sure that doesn't happen. And so it's just trying to be sincere and let people know how much I appreciate, the struggles that they've had, how much a man like Dr. Luther King, I mean, gave his life, literally gave his life to a cause like that. It just means something.
I don't think it can be overstated how important it is that we have a representative or senator like you yourself up north, because, and especially the things that you say, I think can speak to many of the people that may have voted for Governor LePage and others up north. Yeah. We definitely need someone that speaks to all of us in that northern region, and I'm so thankful that you're doing that. What's on your docket? What's coming up for you that you want to promote, that you need people to get out and talk about?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're trying to, as a Democratic caucus, let people understand that, we're the party that fights for everyday working class people, elderly people that don't have anyone to turn to. And I mean, I don't know there's any one particular issue that, this is a signature thing, but we just want to make sure that people understand, and what they've been so good about is having people that are struggling never lift their eyes up to see who's really making it hard on them. I mean, they always blame those that are less fortunate underneath. This whole welfare debate is because other people can't understand why they can't have a decent job, why they can't send their kids to school, and they point to the people on the bottom and say, if it wasn't for these people, you'd be doing better. The reality has never been further from the truth. It's, the 1%, the Wall Street, the people with the greed that, continue to make it completely hard. Student debt. I mean, who would ever imagine that, they were making obscene amount of profits off of sending, people going to school, and all those things, are, in my opinion, what we have to focus on, make sure that whoever you are in this state, Republican, Democrat, urban, rural, that there is a common theme here, and it's, profits before people, and you have to push back against that.
Change that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know you have a dinner waiting for you up there, and this is an off-the-cuff interview. Yeah. I want to thank you, Senator Troy Jackson. Right. If you ever run, I'm going to come up and cover every bit of it. I really enjoyed your speech, and I can tell you're a great guy. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay?
You take care.
Thanks again.